Hey, Jason, or do you prefer to go by Jace?
Jace. Nobody really calls me Jason too much, not even my parents. So
I was gonna
yeah,
say
it's
except your
Jace.
mother, but even
Uh,
even that, okay.
yeah,
So, Jace, good to see you. Thanks for sitting down to chat. Can you fill whomever is listening in a little bit on your background, where you're from, what you do, yada yada.
yeah. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I'm a North Linden kid, and I've been doing technology and technology startups for close to 30 years. A lot of it's in the arts, but a lot of it's in technology and new markets as well. Um, I guess big hits from what I've done. I was at Netflix for 10 years. We're talking back in the DVD, Blu-ray days. Even the HD discs there were out there for a minute. Um, and so that's a big deal. It was a content. I worked the content department out there, bought the DVDs, made decisions on what films were being purchased and sent out to customers. Before that, I helped a bunch of startups in emerging fields. Arts is a big one. I had one of the first like online arts collectives in 1998, 1999. We were out before DeviantArt was out. With that, we had true peer-to-peer um, videos that people could upload and download. It was an MPEG 2 format, which is when we're on MPEG 4, and it's a long time ago. But with that, also dabbled a bunch in how people get paid online. That's another big piece. They call it fintech today, but back then it was just whatever. PayPal didn't even exist. But just how you can sell things online, do payments online, create new markets, and those types of things. More recently, I'm also president of the longest running film festival in the United States, the Columbus International Film and Animation Festival. We're celebrating our 72nd year this year. Um, but I also have a bunch of startups. So if you see me on LinkedIn, you'll see there's a bunch of startups I help out. One of them's Five Star Fans. One of my previous companies that I helped start up with the technology side, we pushed all the way up for a NASDAQ S1 filing for NASDAQ listing. That happened over the pandemic. That was for verifiable credentials. Um, yeah, I'm rambling, but do a bunch of blockchain stuff, do a bunch of emerging markets, emerging finance. Just interested in everything, I guess.
So, how did a kid from North Linden, Columbus, Ohio, get into tech 30 years ago?
All right, so here's the thing that people don't realize about Columbus. I mean, some people do. One, I'll give you a fact. One, we have like the most IP addresses across any place on the planet. So we're very highly connected, and that goes all the way back to CompuServe, Battelle days. And then one piece that people forget is that like Westerville Schools was like the first high school in the United States to like drop a computer lab in. So they were teaching students computers before like anywhere else. And so when you combine Battelle, CompuServe, Westerville Schools, it created this foundation back in the early 90s that no place else in the country was doing, had that capabilities. And so the young people, we all got together, whether it was for, I don't know, we had hacker groups. So 2600, we used to meet at the old convention center by the payphone. So that group, we'd have all the hacker kids would just hang out. And then I would say that was a driving force. And then Ohio State used to have their anime club that would show movies, anime movies and shows once a month. And so we'd meet up for, kind of a cross uh, combination of the anime kids that were nerds doing computer stuff, and then the hacker kids, hanging out and doing hacking stuff. But like hacking then to hacking now is a little different. Back then nobody really, yeah, it was horsing around. It wasn't so much hacking. Like we're gonna go steal a bunch of stuff. That's not it. It's just curiosity and how do computers and how do we all communicate and that type of stuff. And then back then, you had to pay for by the minutes, for like AW or AOL and the other things. So having the kids get together, yeah, we were bad sharing passwords, that type of stuff. But anything to get us online so we could talk to each other. So
That's really cool. And I did not know that about Westerville. Another fun fact about Columbus and Ohio in general, which I say Ohio is the creative capital. People can argue with me about that, but that's a whole
We
other
do
topic. But
lots and lots of firsts that people just
yeah,
don't realize we do. So,
well, as I say, we were what leaders in innovation at the Industrial Revolution. And I argue that those leaders, Edison, the Wright brothers, all of those, they were creatives. They were, that they had a curiosity and a wonder, and were problem solvers, and that's how they were innovative, and that's where innovations come from. And so if you don't foster artists, creatives, that mindset, you're not fostering innovation. And so it sounds like to me that's exactly what you were doing 30 years ago, hacking around, right? You were curious and you were
yep,
trying to create something.
yep.
Where did that take you then? So did you go to college? What did you do?
Yeah. So, gosh, I went to Columbus State twice. I got degrees from there. Went to Ohio State for a bit, didn't work out. Went to Franklin. Got sick in like my final semester there, ended up in the hospital, and then things kind of fell off the rails from there because being a poor kid, you ride on Pell Grants, right? And if you've changed schools too many times, then you can't defer anymore. And if you're in the hospital, there's not much you can do. But so I got a couple degrees. Didn't get higher up degrees, but let's see, I've traveled to after my first 2-year degree in the arts. I got a 2-year degree in the arts. I got a 2-year degree in science from Columbus State. The first one I went to Florida, helped a production studio there, helped a buddy get a production studio off the ground for like 3D animation, which was a huge thing. Everybody wanted 3D animation at the time. Big car dealership because it was the hottest thing out. We're talking 97. Uh, and helping him get his stuff together. And that's where I personally ran into like how do we're shipping these drives out to people because you can't like transfer online. The files are too big. So like we're sending drives out, and it was like how do we get payments online back? And I'm like, 21 at the time, and the only way you could do like online payments was like the bank gave you a credit card reader for your house, and they weren't about to give some 21-year-old hacker kids a credit card reader for their house for good reason. You shouldn't do that as a bank. And so we had to come up with other ways on like how can we get payments online. This led to a local company. I was in Melbourne, Florida at the time, helping with all this, and one of the companies there was called eGold. eGold is like a predecessor to like Bitcoin, but it was centralized. Department of Justice like shut them down. But I got to see a front row seat on like what happens in finance when the government doesn't want you to do finance, and why there should be other options available, which leads into cryptocurrency and all that fun stuff. I was really early in all that stuff too. So, but just being able, but it was more about being able to do payments as a young person online, where you know the powers that be wouldn't give you the tools you need to be able to do the sales. And um, it's like being unbanked, I guess, to an extent. And that's way back when in the 90s, but it still happens today to people, and it's garbage. And so there needs to be alternative ways that people get paid. So went there, then yeah, got hired, worked for art.com for a bit. I was an auditor there for the high end stuff. We're talking like putting on white gloves and making sure like the art pieces matches the signatures, make sure that we're sending like the real stuff off on the high end art from art.com. Worked for there because they were the biggest. That's where I moved back from Florida. They were the biggest in Central Ohio in terms of dot coms. And then while I was working there, I heard Netflix was coming to town. I was like, oh, back to movies. That sounds great in video pieces. Let's go work for them, bigger.com. And it's wild. I started there loading trucks as a temp, and then worked my way. I found a really nice director lady there who saw that I was painfully underemployed, and helped her. And she was going up the chain. She just brought me with her. And then next thing I know, after a while, I'm flying back and forth to San Francisco, and then they're like, well, why don't you just move out here? So Netflix moved me out to the San Francisco Bay Area. I worked out there for a while. While I was out there, I was also principal. I'm sorry, principal for one of the leading blockchain education centers. It all ties back to doing alternative finance and that type of stuff. And yeah, those students and the professors there, they've all gone on to do really big, wonderful things. And then pandemic hits, and I come back to Columbus, so hang out with mom and
So,
dad.
okay, so you flew out to San Francisco and lived what year?
Gosh, I was out
approximately?
there I was flying out from 2015 to like 20, I moved back like right before the pandemic. So I was out there 5, 6 years.
Okay. And but you were
Worked for
with,
Netflix for 10.
you said that again?
I worked for Netflix for 10 years.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So you said something earlier about your education. You said art and then science.
yeah, yeah. So, they have the bachelor's of arts degree and bachelor's of science degree, but they have associates in that too. And so when I was originally going to school, I wanted to go into patent law for web communications. um, because obviously I knew how to do that stuff from living it, and I really wanted to go into patent. I thought patent for emerging communications would be a big deal. I went to so got the science degree. I got the arts degree first, and they let me do an independent study. Columbus State did let me do an independent study on international computer policy tied around encryption. Uh, but the Department of Behavioral Science allowed me to do that because I was able to consider like hackers as a social group. And so I got to study with my friends about things that were hacking. And then at the time, people forget that like encryption was a big deal here in the United States. They weren't allowing certain grades of encryption to protect yourself in. And so um, there was a lot going on there. It was illegal to have certain levels of encryption. It was considered military grade, and today everybody gets to use all that stuff, which is great because everybody should be able to protect themselves. But back then, each country had their own policies on how data was transferred and those types of things, and the encryption levels that were allowed. Um, so funnily enough, yes, it was very much a science thing, but behavioral science as an art allowed me to do an independent study on that. So,
So
and then,
yeah, well, you
and it,
mentioned, go ahead.
as I say, but then you can't go to law school really on an arts degree. If you want to do patent, you need science. So then I had to go back and pick up science. I really wanted to push that all the way through, but didn't work out. Got sick, and didn't happen. But I don't know. Lots of my friends are lawyers and they do that stuff, and I like talking with them. But you know, it's not me. I do other stuff. So
So you talk a lot about tech, but then there's also this creative aspect in film, etc. You moved back to Columbus during the pandemic. What changed? I'm going to throw a few questions at you, but I think they all overlap. Did you see any changes coming back? How are things done differently out on the West Coast as far as investment in tech, creatives, startups, which to me it's very entrepreneurial, which I think artists are the ultimate entrepreneurs. They're always looking to create something that's not currently made or done. Take that
yeah,
with you what you will, and what's the landscape for innovation, investment in creatives, your opinion?
yeah. One, it's tough. I did some stuff with the arts here before going out to California. I had an arts platform in 1999, which is an arts collective that allowed people to upload their art, sell their art, commission free, just contact people together. Hey, you like this art? We can talk, or come to my show. And we weren't like taking money for that. It was just like connecting artists with people that like art. And we were up for an arts grant. We applied for I can't remember which arts grant it was for the for here in Columbus, but we needed some money to do that. And it was a social network. I mean, we're talking, this is before DeviantArt was even existed, and social network was kind of a new concept. You had to like explain to people on how that even works. Today it's so integrated that everybody knows what that is, but back then they didn't. And so we went to get some funding on that, and we went through a couple rounds, and some of the people at the Arts Council liked us, but it came down to like, oh, we'll cut you a check for $6,000. I'm like, we're doing tech. Tech cost, tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, $6,000 is free money, but I mean, come on, that's not even gonna get us through a month of anything. So it was really rough. And then I go out to the Bay and I start hanging out with the school and people out there, and we would go to like a party on a Friday night where it might be a pool party, private party, whatever, at some person's house or wherever they've rented out the Airbnb, and you talk to people. You meet some really interesting people, especially in the Bay Area. If they're at those types of events, they're there because they live there, which automatically means they usually have some money. You got to have some money to live in California. It's very expensive, especially that part. But we could have term sheets the following, like we go on a weekend, a Friday, we could have term sheets Monday, depending on how things go and depending on who you're talking to. That doesn't happen here at all. Like, and I guess the biggest thing difference is that for California, it's all about like independent funding. It might be another company that's funding, but it's independent funding. It's not the state that's doing running venture capital. That doesn't make any sense. Like the whole point of venture capital, modern venture capital, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is it starts with the space race and the government was funneling money into California, and that's how Silicon Valley starts to put a man on the moon. They need chips, so they start. But then the students, shortly after push back and like we don't want government blood money, we want to be independently funded, and so that's where venture starts. And then and that's how everything works in California. It's not state run. And then you come back to Ohio, and everything I go to is about Jobs Ohio, Ohio X, Ohio this, Ohio that. Ohio needs to do this. They need to give more money. We need to match more SBIRs. We need to Ohio, Ohio, Ohio. And I'm like, what the heck? Where is this? Like, does nobody know how venture even started? It appears they have. They don't. I'm not trying to like shit on Ohio here or anything like that. It's very backwards. It's very backwards. It's very different. The factoid that I've seen over the last year is, Ohio's 47th in venture funding, and I can feel it. It's bad. In the arts is, God, we've got CCAD, which is huge, right? Like they're a really good art school, and Ohio State's got a great art program too. They just brought back some video, a new department for like broadcast and video recording and all that stuff for films and movies and shows. I think it's great that it's back. I was actually in the class at Ohio State, the last class that had that before they cut that department. So it's been a long time. So I was so happy to see the news that they're bringing that back. But yeah, funding here across the board is crazy, like crazy bad, in a lot of ways. I think it all starts with people thinking that the state, is the place to go, but then the state also gatekeeps a lot of it too, through Ohio Third Frontier Foundation and things like that. But from what I've heard, Ohio Third Frontier is going away, so I don't know if that's going to be good or bad, but it's interesting. And then we've got organizations that are really big. They're almost too big to fail for Columbus, Kappa, and everything that they do. We're not affiliated with them. Don't really want to be affiliated with them. But like, it's just why do we have these big groups that control? I don't know. It's really centralized, I guess. That's what it comes down to.
So what advice would you give an emerging artist, emerging creative who wants to either lead an arts nonprofit? You said you run a nonprofit startups. What would you tell yourself, your 30-year self
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
on how to navigate?
Get out of your backyard. First and foremost, there's a whole world out there of opportunities that's not just Ohio. And I'm not saying you have to leave Ohio. I'm just saying, but go visit. Go visit how other places do things and bring those ideas back. There's a lot of talk about boomerangs. I'm a boomerang. They call me that because I was in Ohio. I went out to the coast, and then I come back, got boomerang back. But um, and a lot of people expect me to bring something back from like California and some knowledge or whatever. But part of that people forget is that when you go out there, you're a fish out of water and you're trying to do things like the Ohio way because that's all right? And then after being told off multiple times that what you're doing is wrong or that's not the way we do things here, you got to get past yourself a little bit, and that's what I mean by getting out of your backyard. See how other areas do things. If this is all it's all you don't know if it's better or worse, but getting out and seeing how things go is highly important. That's for everything in life. That's not just arts, but when I have a startup, one of the first things I tell them, they ask me advice like, "What's okay? We've raised a little bit of money. What's the first thing that we should be doing?" And I always tell them, I was like, one, First thing is you get things called anchor articles, meaning you want to get your name out in the press. That's not the local press, like press out. Try to get 5 or 6 anchor articles out there, um, so that when anybody's doing due diligence or looking you up, that they can see that, somebody else is telling your story. That you're not just you talking, about yourself. It's highly important. And I think a lot of people miss that first step on how important that is to not just get out of your backyard, but have people from outside of your backyard talking about you. It goes a long, long, long way. So
Do you think then talked about, boomerang coming back, bringing back knowledge you've learned elsewhere, change, the need for change or a mindset, perhaps in Ohio or the Midwest? Where do you start with that and how to change how we view arts, creative technology, VC, all of that mindset, industry building?
yeah, it's tough. It's such a huge undertaking, right? Like, and I'm not even sure. I'll tell you right now, I'm not sure. Still trying to figure that out myself, being back here and trying to figure out who I should be working with, who I should be talking to. I mean, that's what brought us together, like it was from referrals. Like you, Jace, you need to meet Angela. So I don't have, well, if I knew exactly what to do there, I don't know if I'd even be on the podcast. I would be doing that. But there are some things that I think are critically important. I think we have a problem here in Ohio with business formation. I think we have loopholes around LLCs, which are pretty cool for limited liability companies, and I think artists can really lean into that. But when it comes to like corporate level, it's really bad. It's really bad. We have one of the most repressive of corporation formations in the country, which is bad because when it comes to startups, most investors outside Ohio are going to look for a corporation. They want a corporate structure. Usually it's out of Delaware that they can understand. Uh, but Ohio's got a very weird corporate structure, it blows my mind of how we have those things set up. Considering we had, Ohio Third Frontier Foundation should have fixed that like day one, and they didn't. They let it slide. So here in Ohio, when you form a corporation, you get so many shares of stock, common stock that you can do. But if you want to go above that, you have to pay the state for each share, which is ridiculous because I'm trying to raise money. And let's say I'm trying to do crowdfunding. And let's say I'm trying to do equity crowdfunding. That means I'm going to be selling a share to somebody. Well, now I've got a built-in cost that I have to pay the state before I can even go out and raise the money from crowdfunding, which the federal government has allowed. And so we're really behind. And that's a very big example of uh just doing it wrong. And the gatekeepers never push back to think like, hey, you know what, maybe we shouldn't charge people that need to go raise money before they go to try to raise it. That's just bad. So I don't know. I don't know if that really answers your question, but I,
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 I don't I don't know. But there's little things that I've been uncovering, I guess, as being here and living it, that I'm like, this is backwards and needs fixed. So
yeah, no, I think that, for example, is a tangible um, project or advocacy campaign where you could go and talk to lawmakers about how
Lieutenant
difficult, you
Lieutenant
know,
Governor's office has been completely open with any ideas. Like Houston's office is amazing, and the people he's got working for him are very, very, very receptive. Like they've taken lunches with me, calls anytime, emails, like anything. They're like anything you see that's weird, just please send us a note on it, and we can look into it a little bit more. So I love that the Lieutenant Governor's office has been super receptive on any feedback, which is different than from California too. Like I'd never have access to those people, unless they're at a party that I happen to, they happen to be there for a fundraiser or something. But so I like that. That's very much a positive thing here in Ohio, is that we're still small enough that you can get that access to those, yeah, like the Lieutenant Governor's office. That to me, that's amazing. Um, but it's all about the messaging and being able to have some knowledge to pass on and see why this is wrong or how you've seen it someplace else. And if it's all you really can't have that conversation. So
How big is the community around technology, creative tech, independent filmmaking, or those types of projects that you're involved in? How big is that community in Central Ohio or in Ohio, the Midwest in general?
So, when I 5 years ago when I was started with the film festival here, like the quality of films we were seeing from Ohio filmmakers were pretty low. Um, it's like great. And how do you how and the problem one of the problems I had is like how do I showcase that against like these award-winning movies that we have international and put them on screen? Because then it's like, oh, well, I'm watching this amazing movie, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this movie is not this next film. It's like culture shock, right? Like how do we do this and not hurt those filmmakers? I want to protect people here in Ohio and advance them. That's what I want to do, right? And so it was really tricky. But this past season, we had like five Ohio films that came through that were all like great. Great. Like I can put them up against the international stuff and it works. I don't have to worry about it. Some of it is, more documentary making, but we've got some narratives that were really good this year that like not only did they win like Ohio, but they won their category as well. And so I'm very, very happy to see that. Things that we've been working with, because I mean, part of the organization is helping, Central Ohio filmmakers and Greater Columbus filmmakers. Um, we've been working a little bit with the city of Hilliard. They've got some stuff going on over there. Hilliard has got some innovation stuff happening that is some of the best. People overlook them. They think oh Dublin and they think gosh New Albany, but don't overlook Hilliard. Don't sleep on them. They've got some stuff going on out there that's really interesting with innovation. I know they've got a startup innovation contest coming up with some judging that's happening I think next month into next month where they're can give startups can win up to like $25,000, things like that. But there also have some filmmakers out there that I meet with about once a month about, how can we help them get their films out there and done. And one of the things we can also do is with the organization, with the film organization, is that we could do really low cost screenings at like places like the Phoenix and things like that. So if you're a filmmaker and you want something screened here in Central Ohio, we can make that happen at a very, very, very affordable cost. So lowest in town, I can guarantee that. Um,
And is that a screening outside of a festival? That's just if you want to
Oh
go
yeah, yeah,
see.
yeah. If we know a month in advance or a few weeks in advance, we can get a screen for a couple hours and show your film. We can do that. You can have a Columbus premiere.
That's awesome. And so this is a great way to wrap up because I was going to say if anybody listening is interested in doing a screening or talking to you more about the work that you're doing, collaborating, etc., where can they find you?
Yeah, mostly LinkedIn. That's me. But we also have columbusfilm.org is us. Um, but yeah, me directly. LinkedIn's the best. I'm sure you can post it, share it. That's fine. Hit me up there. I'm on that the most. Funny story about that is working at Netflix. With my job, I wasn't allowed to have any social media. The only one they allowed me to have was LinkedIn because they considered that business. So I don't really have any other social media. So LinkedIn is the way to get a hold of me.
I've
So
heard it, I've heard it said that LinkedIn today is like Facebook 2013.
it's very much like that. I mean, you still got access, and you can find some really, really, really smart people. And I mean, we've done a lot of talking on LinkedIn. It's just how it goes. It's like friends of friends helps.
Yeah.
Validate what you're saying, who you are, and lowers the risk, of meeting new people, I guess. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jace, I really appreciate your time. We will post your contact information along when we publish this and hope that people reach out and look to see a Columbus screening debut sometime soon of
yep.
these fantastic filmmakers that are continuing to work and grow in Central Ohio and across Ohio.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me, and it's good talking.
Thanks, Jace.